Hare Krishna.
So let's start section number 3 of this three-part series on the GBC history. Welcome, and thank you for being punctual. There is less of you, meaning the punctual devotees today than other days, but we need to honor your presence. So let's start with the review of yesterday. Yesterday, we spent most time discussing that the period after Srila Prabhupada left and how there was a, you could say, strong dichotomy within the GBC between the acharyas, the gurus, initiating spiritual masters, and the non-gurus. We have seen the resolutions in 1978, and we have seen how many of them, unfortunately, had serious spiritual problems, and they had to leave their position. Then, especially in 87, with the 50-man committee and other aspects, there was a replenishment of new GBCs. Also, in those years, there were many more new gurus being approved and authorized, and so on. So that concluded the phase number 2, say the Zon Acharya days. Then we started talking about the phase 3, long phase, 18 years. And we notice how the resolutions become more wordy, more long-winded in one sense, more legalistic, and more detailed in one sense, and let's say also more professional, because the first years of resolutions were kind of a little bit sometimes vague, sometimes very, very scanty in their descriptions. So we mentioned briefly about the Robin George case. This is also the period in which the GBC started creating functions like the Child Protection Office to train and establish standards for children protection. Okay, this is a brief 2-minute review. Anybody wants to ask anything or share anything, some observation from what we discussed yesterday or the first day? Is my voice clear?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, good.
I will share something, Prabhu.
And yes, go ahead.
Yeah, at one point of time, 1985, 87, that was a time when new gurus were added. So initially the language that was used was that they were empowered by the GBC. Slowly it became blessings, and then they were authorized. So in one sense, what I could learn is probably because of not having proper understanding, they were thinking that they're blessing their god brothers or they're empowering their god brothers. But then later that mature feeling came, and now they're just saying that we are authorizing our god brothers. And that was also one thing that caused
no objection.
Yeah. So that was also one. Yeah. Then later it became no objection. And also that 50-man committee, you mentioned that a lot of people, actually Prabhupada's disciples, were troubled by the way how some zonal acharyas were dealing with them. So actually they are all god brothers, and some of them may be in a high position, some of them may be in the service of being an initiating spiritual master. But for god brothers, even if their god brother is on a very high position, but it becomes little difficult when they act in a superior way. So one thing that I learned is over a period of time, the senior devotees have also learned that they may be having different services and different positions, but at least amongst their god brothers, they should behave in a way that normal brothers deal with each other and not with a sense of superiority. These are two things that I thought.
Well, yes, of course, a good brother should always treat all the good brothers with respect and in one sense as peers. I remember when I was serving directly as personal assistant, traveling secretary, Jeff Dagamaresh, when he was healthy, when he was not going into the, was not going through the wheelchair, I remember he made a point when a god brother would pay him obeisances, then he would pay obeisances back, even if it again was not, say, quote unquote, an important god brother, important leader. But he made that point. I noticed that. Made the point that if a god brother offers obeisances, he offers obeisances back. So your point is valid. A little footnote: the Srila Prabhupada does say, I believe it's Chaitanya Charitamrita, that the senior god brother should be seen by junior god brother almost at the level of a spiritual master. So yes, the senior god brother should see all the god brothers as brothers. So have that respect, that sense of being peers. At the same time, a junior god brother should also recognize the seniority, the experience, the advancement of his or her senior brothers. I mean, we have in ISKCON now, say, for instance, there are gurus who are initiating for, say, 40 years. And one thing is to be a devotee for 40 years, especially if he has been sincere, studious, serious, and so on. And maybe a good brother who gets initiated tomorrow morning. So obviously there
is a difference here.
There is obviously a difference, you know. Sometimes we do have, I think many of us have good brothers say were sannyasis and so on. So obviously there is also variety. But thank you for bringing it up. It's an important thing. In fact, some of you might take up very important positions in terms of ashram, in terms of service. But yeah, we should not forget that we should have a brotherly relation with our good brothers and good sisters. Yeah. Thank you. Anything else? Nothing else? Okay. So let's continue. I'm going to share
one point I wanted to share.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
I'm Radhakrishna Garudas here.
Yes, please.
Yeah. See, initially after Srila Prabhupada's departure, when these 11 devotees, they started independently managing the society as a GBC. Even they were very young and inexperienced, and because of that, because of lack of experience, some decisions which were taken were out of immaturity. But gradually, as you had mentioned that they've taken guidance from Sridhar Maharaj from the Gaudiya Math, and also going through further the faults. The important thing is that they were able to see the faults and they started correcting them. It took some years for them to come out with so many what you call resolutions, amendments. But over a period of time, many of the faults they started rectifying. So this one thing what Srila Prabhupada established as a GBC and the society running the movement was completely different than how the Gaudiya Math functioned after the departure of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur. Otherwise, this society would have gone into chaos. This was my understanding.
Yes, it would have been certainly split in so many factions and so many fragments. Sure. Because somehow these devotees, although they were young, inexperienced, and so on, and some of them had personal ambition and so on, tried that because the International Society for Krishna Consciousness maintained this key instruction of keeping a governing body commission, is still largely, almost totally united as a community, as a society. Thank you. Thank you for noticing that.
Also, you are saying that very interesting or shocking that is GBC is an international governing body for our society, but it runs with very little budget. It's like king without any clothes. almost like that. Something like that.
Yeah. I mean, $100,000 nowadays, it's not even a salary of a corporate CEO or anything like that, or one person. I mean, there are many managers in India in companies that make more than that for 1 year. And here we are talking about the all governing body commission with all the duties that they need to do for service the society, all the emergencies, all the legal aspects, campaign information, education. So it's really nothing. I mean, it's really nothing. I mean, many of you are build temples, and you know how much it costs, crores of rupees for building a temple, goshalas, schools and things. So you can imagine how much money a board of directors, which is what the GBC is, as a board of directors, could spend and invest for the expansion of the movement, for supporting different areas and so on and so forth. Without money, very difficult. You only are left with the moral authority, which is not the strongest of. Very important, but it doesn't give you practical tools for executing your leadership necessarily. So we have Rasa Shraya Prabhu. Thank you for bringing that up.
Prabhu, you were telling about the zonal acharya system, and you said it was not work. It did not work, like many of the gurus, they fell down, and those zonal acharyas, they fell down. So now, as I told you, that still this mentality of, that my zone, my area, your area, it is there in the presidents, in the secretaries, and still there, and it is going on.
Sorry, the secretaries in the who?
Like who are above the president.
Oh.
Yeah, middle people. So that mentality is so much is there. I will tell you, we had a plan of a Pushkar, just recent, 2-3 days before. Our Guru Maharaj has a plan of visiting a Pushkar as a holy religious place. And the secretaries and the president, they restricted travel ban. You cannot even enter in the Rajasthan and have a darshan of a Pushkar and have a retreat, which is not related to any preaching. So even before coming to ISKCON, we can travel anywhere. But now we travel anywhere, we have to take permission of a president or a secretary to just go in their state, enter. Like a normal citizen also, we cannot enter. So that is a problem. So much problem is coming. So that mentality is not going still, that I'm saying. So how we can learn a lesson from this and stop this mentality of Gokhara mentality? How we can stop this?
Okay, I will not comment on the Pushkara incident because I don't know, and I don't know the reasons. So I will not comment on the particular specific episode. Okay. See, in general, when you have a responsibility, territorial responsibility, it could be a state in India, could be a country somewhere else. It's good to have a sense of ownership. Ownership, not in the mundane sense, this is mine, not like in the sense of aham mameti, but in the sense of responsibility. This is my Prabhu Datta Desha. This is the area, physical area, territorial area for which I am responsible. And that sense of responsibility, it's healthy. Now, obviously, anything in this world can be done in the 3 modes of nature. So in a healthy way, yes, this place, I have responsible. I need to do my best service. I am a servant. I'm a servant of everyone, devotees, non-devotees, the deities. I'm the servant of guests, traveling sannyasis. I'm the servant. And I'll try to do my best throughout this zone. If we are contaminated by passion and ignorance, this could be mixed with some sense of pride, some sense of Ishvara Bhava. exaggerate Ishvara Bhava, in the sense, exaggerate sense of controlling. It could become micromanagement. It could become being harsh or unnecessarily close to people visiting and things like that. So in one sense, there is nothing wrong to have a strong sense of responsibility for one area. Like if you run a temple, you should feel, yes, every aspect of the temple I need to take care. So if you run a zone, you should be very, very conscious of what's going on in the temples, in the outside and everything. But of course, this can degenerate in a little personal ambition or rudeness or harshness. So we need to be careful. And that can happen in anything. Can happen at zone level, can happen at the temple president level. Even if you're in charge of the kitchen, it can happen. Even if you're in charge of the shoe area, it can happen. Where you put the shoes. Because this is the conditioning, the Ishvara Bhava. We try to control and enjoy what we are given. So we need to be careful. How? Your question is, at the same time, I wanted to say, it's different than the zonal acharya, because zonal acharya means in all this, and time it's a big continent. In this continent, I am only the guru, I'm only the initiator, and like that. It's a system, and we tried. Then we discarded. We said no. There should be many gurus, and people should be free to take initiation from wherever they feel like that. So it was a shift in mentality, in policy. Your question is how to remove this type of, when it's exaggerated sense of controlling. Well, first of all, training, not only technical training, managerial training, administrative training, but also training in introspection. Why am I doing this service? What's my motivation? Is it pure? Is it contaminated? Contaminated by what? I mean, we see in the second canto of the Bhagavatam, we see Lord Brahma when he prays for, I believe it was the third canto, sorry. When he prays for the creative potency, he also prays, please allow me not to be contaminated by pride, because he knows once you have power, once you are influenced, pride can come. So even the head of our Sampradaya knew the danger of responsibility. So training, introspection, ongoing training, ongoing analysis, creating peer monitoring. Friends and talk with them and say, look, I'm doing this service. What do you think? What do you think I'm doing good? What do you think I'm not doing so well? And so on. Having always mentors, always having some personal guide. So these are some of the tools that can prevent that. And of course, on a society level, one thing we could do is to have clear agreements, clear legislation that is not just arbitrary. There should be some norms. I give you an example. In one country in Europe, which I won't mention, the National Council made a rule that, okay, if you are a guru, you're traveling guru, you come through this place, and any donation you receive, you have to give 50% to the National Council. Now, that's not in ISKCON law. It's very arbitrary. I would say it's not in line with our culture. And I was talking with a guru, and he told me, look, I don't feel to go there, not for the money. Now, this person is very Brahminical, it's not like a collector or anything, but is a real teacher. He said, I don't feel like going like that, not because of the money, but because of the sense of control. I'm seeing like, I don't know, an enemy, or I'm seeing like, I have to give 50% of whatever they give me to the National Council. I mean, why? So we need to have strong supervision, and we need to act according to the rule of law, not just according to arbitrary decisions. Okay?
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Okay, so let's go to our super PowerPoint.
Also, you are telling Prabhuji that it is really a historical and cultural miracle that ISKCON is together,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and that
Yes.
is because of this concept of GBC. Like Gaudiya Math, though you are quoting Bhakti Char Maharaj that though they had more senior devotees, more experienced devotees, though less people fell down, though they may be, but still it is fragmented and the impact of the preaching is less. But ISKCON, though it has gone through so much turmoil and so many leaders have fallen apart, still as a movement is flourishing and going on, and so that is because of a concept of GBC as as instructed by Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur and implemented by Srila Prabhupada timely.
Yeah, no, we need to understand that it's a spiritual principle. You know, it's in the continuation of Lord Chaitanya Lila. Lord Chaitanya Lila is obviously spiritual. In the continuation of Chaitanya Lila, the main acharyas have organized, especially all main acharyas, also the modern acharyas, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, they're organizing the mission. This is the mission of Lord Chaitanya. They're organizing the mission through collective leadership. So it's a spiritual, it's not just like a managerial idea. It's a spiritual principle. Thank you. Thank you for bringing it up. Okay.
One thing I wanted to ask,
Sure.
can I ask?
But then this is the last, then we have to go to the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like uh, I do not know the details, but we had heard a lot of things about the Turley case and all this thing, but you never spoke in that history from this thing. Any reason?
I'm about to speak about the Turley case briefly. Yes.
Okay.
It's in this period. Yes. It's in the 90s. In a couple of minutes. Okay, so let me share. Okay, more highlights from this very broad period. One was the Temple President Meetings Board renamed the ISKCON Managers Meeting in 1986 as defunct. What happened at the time of Srila Prabhupada had a system, 75, 76, that the temple presidents would come to the Mayapur. At the time, coming to Mayapur was a very important function for the whole movement. Once there was a dialogue between Srila Prabhupada and the temple president, this president told Srila Prabhupada, he said, look, if we don't come to Mayapur, to India, Mayapur Vrindavan, for the festival, 1 year, we could make $1 million. We could save $1 million. And we could build a huge temple at the time, especially $1 million was much more valuable 45 years ago. Srila Prabhupada said, yes, very good idea. Maybe we should also stop eating. We could save so much money if we stop eating. Imagine how many temples we can build. In other words, in this facetious way, Srila Prabhupada stressed how important it was to come to the Dham every year, especially for those preaching in the West, not contaminated atmosphere and so on. So for them, it was a very, very important function. And at the beginning, everybody will come to Mayapur for the GBC meetings, all the temple presidents and so on. So Srila Prabhupada organized that the president had the chance to go through the resolutions of the GBC and see if they were really for or against. And they could remand it. They could say, look, we don't really want that. Because at that time, of course, ISKCON was much simpler. There was the GBC, it was Srila Prabhupada, on top of everything, the GBC, and then the temple presidents. And the vast majority, maybe 95% or more, of the temple was in the temple. So the lines of authority, the chain of command was very clear. So if the temple presidents were against the GBC resolution and they would not apply, then of course it would be useless, right? So there were certain resolutions at one point the GBC passed, like for instance, no women can stay in the temple. There was one sannyasi who proposed that take all the women of the movement, North America, Europe, and just send them all to Australia. I mean, that was obviously some immature idea, but at one point there was this idea. So the GBC, under the influence of certain sannyasis who were very, and we could say anti-women, anti-grihastas, and so on, made some very strong, or even I would say fanatical, very mature resolutions. And the temple president said, no, we don't want to do this. And came to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada supported the temple presidents. And actually, he was upset with some of the GBCs. He said, you know, you're supposed to solve the problem, not creating more problems and more tension. Okay. So at one point, this stopped. In other words, the devotees stopped coming to Mayapur. I remember at one point, I got somehow involved in this ISKCON manager meeting, and there was only one temple president from America in the whole GBC meeting. So it's like, this was not representation, what to speak of Africa, South America, Europe. So I remember that the room was practically just Indian leaders, Indian temple presidents. So it was not really a representative anymore. So it was stopped. And we will discuss a little bit later how it was re-established in different forms a few years ago. We'll talk about that in the form of the Sabha. The deputies were established. You probably have heard about the GBC deputies. Now, the GBC deputies have a different function. They are senior devotees. There are about 25 of them, but they don't have veto power. They cannot just say, no, we don't like this proposal. They process the proposal. Sometimes the proposals are written maybe in a perfect way, or there is no mention of who's supposed to do what the proposal says. So the deputies go through the proposal and clean it up, follow up with the proposer, and so on. They also process in the sense they can tell the GBC if they like it, they don't like it. And generally, the GBC takes the deputies' opinions very seriously. You know, they have their own voting. So if a proposal comes in front of the GBC, and the GBC see that, okay, 10 deputies, 9 were against, 1 abstention, probably, it's not the rule, but probably the GBC will also go against that proposal, like that. So the deputies are established in this period, and it's an important function of the governing body commission because it takes a lot of time, intelligence, institutional memory to process all these proposals. Another thing, the rise and fall of Harikesh Prabhu in 1998, some of you remember, it was quite traumatic because what happened, why the rise? Rise in the sense that, see, Harikesh Prabhu at one point, Harikesh Maharaj at the time, he became very influential. He was always strong in book distribution in Germany and Scandinavia, those places. Then he became also very influential in Russia. He was one of the first GBC, so he had many disciples in Russia. All the senior disciples were basically his disciples. And in Russia, he had some very strong financial support. There were some of his disciples, they created a stock market investment firm. It was called Preminvest. And they made a lot of money. So at one point, Harikesh Prabhu had a couple of $1 million that he wanted to spend for ISKCON, for education, for the youth. In fact, a couple of years ago, I tell you, I was in a house of all disciples of Harikesh Prabhu, and he has still had a document written by Harikesh Prabhu, and many of the things he was saying is very actual. I mean, very intelligent, very reasonable. The importance of devotee care, the importance of taking care of the youth, new generations, education. I remember reading that paper 2 years ago from more than 20 years before, and the ideas were very good. So what happened? The GBC made him chair for 3 years. In 1998, they made him chairman of the GBC in 3 years, for 3 years. Because he said, look, if I need to do some work, 1 year is too short. So give me the chair for 3 years, and I'll invest my money, I'll do something. And the GBC accepted. He even got in the executive committee, the EC. One devotee was not a GBC, Akandadi Prabhu, from originally the temple president, the Manor, very intelligent, very prepared person. And he started, but then he had his own problems, very, very difficult situation. I don't know how much of you, how much you know. There were some black magic attacks from Russia. There was a number of situations. So basically, he fell from his position. He got married to one of his previous disciples, and it just basically exited the scene. So that's why we say rise and fall of Harikesh Prabhu. He became very influential. Everybody became very hopeful that he could actually do. And one aspect of that fall, I don't know how much that was influential, but the Russian investment firm lost all the money. The stock market collapsed, and all that money just disappeared. So, you know, without money, without power, and also other problems, psychological problems, and so on that we had. So that was one highlight from the period. Now, there were some valiant defensive actions that GBC did. One is the opposition to the Ritviks. You're from India, most of you are from India, so you're familiar with the topic. It was a major attack on the philosophy, on Srila Prabhupada's legacy. And in that case, the GBC was very strong, very determined, and took a very strong, generally the GBC is quite, what do you call, looking for harmony, looking for solutions, peaceful solutions. But at that time, it just took a stand. It banned Madhupandit, it banned Advaita, and said, look, we don't want this philosophy in ISKCON. So it took a very, very strong stand. Another is what you mentioned is the Turley case. Now, the Turley case was a huge case. This Turley meaning it's a lawyer from the United States, and he was famous because he got millions of dollars from the Catholic Church for other cases of child abuse. He got all the defendants, all the abused together. He got many millions of dollars. Now, he tried to do the same with the Hare Krishna movement, with the ISKCON. He got all those who had some issues with the Gurukul system, meaning that they were abused either sexually or by neglect, or maybe they were beaten, or they just felt completely detached or distant from their families. So they made a big court case. So the GBC had to come up with the money, first of all, for the legal action, but also because the GBC wanted to give some money to the devotees who suffered due to ISKCON. Not that those GBCs, maybe they were responsible or they ever did anything against children, but as a society, the GBC felt, as the leaders of the society, the GBC felt responsible. The children suffered, we need to do something, and we need to give some money. Now, it was a multi-year struggle, and You may have heard at one point in North America, they declared bankruptcy. And in India, there is only one form of bankruptcy. It's called liquidation. If you declare bankruptcy, you have to sell everything and then pay your creditors as much as you can. In America, there are two forms. One is liquidation and one is reorganization. So ISKCON in America applied for reorganization. In other words, you don't have to sell everything, but you have to demonstrate that you're making enough changes, positive modification to your system, and it's sustainable, and the same problems won't happen again. So the GBC, to make a long story short, helped by Gopal Bhatta Prabhu, who really took a major lead in that, raised $15 million, which for our society, it's a lot. ISKCON India helped a lot. The BBT helped a lot, but everybody pitched in. No, some of you remember there was a lot of collection, and the money, fortunately, went to the children. So they were somewhat compensated. Of course, we understand the trauma, the shock, the psychological problems, and so on. They cannot just be compensated with money, but at least we embraced the responsibility, we paid, and in fact, some religious movements started studying how ISKCON dealt with the situation, accepting responsibility and doing actually something to repay these children. And I even heard that Mr. Turley even lost money personally as a lawyer in this case. So that was some valiant defensive action. And of course, I'm giving just some highlights. Of course, the preaching was going on, book distribution was going on, especially in this period. There was the collapse of the communism at the beginning of the 90s. So Russia became very big. More GBCs got involved in Russia. So obviously, there were so many other aspects. I'm just giving you some highlights. Okay. If you want to know more, of course, you can read the resolutions from the period and talk with the devotees who were there. Now, so that was phase 3 between the zonal acharya and 2006. Phase 4, 2006, 2020, the down of the strategic era. And I put the question mark because we have to see how the future goes. But it's a fact that in 2006, there was an effort to become more strategic. More strategic means what? Not just talking about reactions, not that some problem like the Turley case happens, okay, we have to do something. Or the Ritvik happens, okay, we need to do something. No. Think about the future. Think about what needs to be created, developed, even though there may not be an immediate emergency. Now, doing things which are important, although they may not appear urgent. Okay, so that we could say started historically in October 2006. This is a temple in northern Italy, approximately near Venice. It's called Prabhupadesh. And it was a monastery before. So generally the meetings are in February or March, and the chairman, His Holiness Bhakti Vaibhav Maharaj, called a special meeting. It was not planned. It was not planned in February or March, but Bhakti Vaibhav Maharaj, in consultation with Gopal Bhatta Prabhu, Raj Bihari Prabhu, Shivaram Maharaj, they really decided, let's have a special meeting, 3 days. And okay, before that, Abhayacharan Prabhu, he has a good memory. In the title, I said a second eclipse. Well, a second eclipse in the sense that with all the new gurus, people certainly, it created a new layer of leadership and allegiance So if before, say in Srila Prabhupada's time, there was Srila Prabhupada, was the guru everybody, was the founder Acharya, the GBCs, who at the time were very respected. You know, I heard they go in the temple, the devotees would wash their feet because these are representatives of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada said they're his representatives. And then the temple presidents. Then now with the creation of many more gurus, especially, of course, the disciples felt allegiance more to the guru. And sometimes they didn't even know who is the GBC or who are the GBCs. So in one sense, the fact that we could say the lack of communication, we said yesterday how sometimes people don't even know what are the GBC resolutions, right? So lack of communication, lack of the GBC having a clear face, a clear face or voice. So obviously it became more irrelevant for the devotees in their personal life. In the personal life, what was important was, okay, the local temple, the local community, and their guru, their personal guru. That became more of a reference, of an allegiance. So in that sense, it was a second eclipse. It was not that zonal acharya themselves who started somewhat being prominent in the GBC, but was just more of a development in ISKCON that people sometimes they didn't even know. I mean, many people, even today, if you ask, many people may not even know who is the GBC chairman or who are the members of the EC. Like that. So it's like a distance. Now there's a gap between the devotees and of course that gap was filled by the many gurus that it's not the fault. I'm not blaming the gurus. The gurus generally do their work. They inspire people, they preach, they teach, they give initiation. Nothing wrong with that. But because of the lack of funding and the lack of face, I mean, for many years, the GBC didn't even have a website. First GBC website started in 2012. So definitely there was a huge gap between the usual, the devotees of ISKCON and the GBC and their decisions. Okay, so let's go back to October 2006. Special meeting, 3 days in Italy, discussing what should we do and what they should have done before they leave this body. In other words, most GBCs are Srila Prabhupada disciples. They're, of course, not getting any younger. What kind of ISKCON they wanted to leave to the future generations? Or in other words, what are the things that need to be done now? Cannot just be waiting. So again, a more strategic idea, not just, okay, what's the last problem, how to solve it? What future we want to create? So these are some photos. This is one hall, it's actually Srila Prabhupada's room in Prabhupada Desh. And you can see that some GBCs around the table. Gopabhata Prabhu was chairing with the help of Rajbihari Prabhu. Bhakti Vaibhav Maharaj is sitting also there. And in fact, the mood was quite serious, quite grave. This sense of great responsibility, what should we do for the movement? So what they did, they identified 6 areas. They spoke for 3 days. They identified 6 areas, and they decided we need to develop these 6 areas. Let's see if I remember all of them. Succession, future spiritual and administrative leaders, how to create them, how to attract them, and so on, how to facilitate them. Constitution, Srila Prabhupada wanted a constitution, but it was never made. So create, draft, pass, create a constitution. Number 3, team building, how the GBC themselves and the society in general can build a better working relation as a team. Then analyzing the traditional preaching strategy of Srila Prabhupada, how relevant they are, like Harinam or book distribution, how relevant they are in the contemporary world. 4. Number 5.
Devotee care.
Huh?
Devotee care.
Devotee care came next year, came in March, but there was not one.
Organization development.
Huh?
Organization development. Org dev.
No. I mean, there was, sorry, it's slipping my mind. Maybe later it come. I mean, I read, there was 100 pages of notes. I read all of them. But right now this will slip my mind. So constitution, succession, preaching strategies, team building. Anyway, later it will come up. Anyway, this was the initial 6 areas that they identified that, yeah, this is very, very important.
Prabhupada position.
Yeah, thank you very much. One is Prabhupada position, clarify, establish clearly what's our concept of Srila Prabhupada. What does it mean to be the founder Acharya? How is that a special position? Prabhupada position. There's a 6th more. Let's see if anybody can remember, or I'll remember. One thing they did is, let's double the yearly meeting. So they already had 14 extra meetings so far. Generally, the meeting was only once a year, but they started having 2 meetings a year. And the second meeting was specifically for this strategic thing, not just to pass resolutions or to deal with immediate problems, but to make this kind of long-term work. Obviously, more you work, more time you put, the more you can create output. And as a result, the GBC strategic planning team was created. This was created in just next year, 2007. Then the GBC strategic planning team created the GBC strategic planning network. What happened for the first time, a number of new devotees, not new devotees in the sense, new bhaktas, and other devotees were not involved with the GBCs, got invited and to work on these strategic things. So it started at the point, first year, I remember there were more than 70 devotees from different parts of the world who came. And these initiatives became many more. From 6, they became, at one point, we even had 18 different initiatives. Some were existing ministries, some were new things. Like, for instance, at one point, Bhakti Marg Maharaj was leading the Vande, Vaishnava arts for the new devotional era. So different artists were together, creating like a guild, and they met for a few years and so on. Devotee care came, that became very strong under the direction of Revati Raman Prabhu and Gauranga Prabhu, especially. It became, they created publications, they created courses. Some of you have taken the course, not the devotee care course. So they created different agents in different parts of the world. This is one of the things that actually developed. Different groups created different things. The GBC Succession Committee created also courses. We also have often in the as a part of the GBC College. I'm not sure if you had it this year. Like that. Again, 18 different initiatives. Some more successful, some more impactful, some less. But again, a way of thinking of the future, of doing things not just reactionarily, but in a long term, for the long term benefit. And also, great people were brought on board. I mean, and they stayed on board. These I just give 5, but again, people were not in the GBC circle, but they were invited. They accepted an invitation. We have, for instance, on the right bottom, you all know Gauranga Prabhu. He took responsibility of devotee care. He did a lot for the GBC College. He's a trustee of the GBC College. He's a member of GBC Organizational Development, and now he became a GBC. Now he's a full-fledged voting GBC member since February or March. On top, we have, top right, we have Rupanuga Prabhu, you know, as the president of the GBC College. He was not involved in GBC work, but was invited. He kindly agreed. So he brought professionality, he brought experience, he brought a lot of good. In the center, we have Chaitanya Avatari Prabhu. He's a member of GBC Organizational Development. He's developed the whole database for disciples and so on. Just yesterday, I had a call with him. This project is going on. Top left, we have Tapa Mishra Prabhu, and he was based in the Middle East. Now he's based in Mayapur. He took a lot of responsibility in the GBC Nominations Committee, GBC Organizational Development, and now he became the Minister for Education. And some of you, or maybe all of you, know how active he has been in creating symposium. Just yesterday, the Shravana week started. You probably got those emails. Am I right? You're getting those emails?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
Prabhu.
So he has been very, very active, and this was the time where we brought him in. The left, the bottom, Devakinandan Prabhu from Singapore is a lawyer, and he also came to the GBC College. He became zonal supervisor of Singapore, and then early this year he became GBC. So he's also a new GBC member, full-fledged voting GBC member. He's also the general counsel of the GBC. In other words, he's the lawyer of the GBC. When the GBC passes resolution, it has to be seen. Is it legally? Will there be any consequences? Any backfire? And of course, he developed the whole legal department. Just yesterday, we had the GBC meeting. He explained a system so that all ISKCON leaders, gurus, sannyasis, GBC can make a will, so that the present properties and assets will remain in ISKCON. Just yesterday, he did this presentation. And so, I mean, these are just examples of how this opening up through strategic planning brought a lot of people in. And these are just 5, but I could tell you many more names, of course. Founder Acharya book was produced. Mostly Ravindra Sur Prabhu wrote it with of course consulting GBC back and forth feedback. Bhakti Chara Maharaj, he paid for the printing, and probably you all have read. So that's a major step in ISKCON saying, okay, this is what we believe Srila Prabhupada is. It's a very academic, very scholarly book. So that was one outcome of this production. And this photo, it was at the ILS, I believe, 2014, when it was presented to the leaders. Now there is this book. The GBC Organizational Development Committee was formed in 2008. We started having 3 meetings a year, 2 together before the GBC meetings, and 1 separately around June, like that. And the GBC Organizational Development Committee, this is our official logo, Sri Sudarshan Chakra, because he gives light, he gives vision, he defeats adharma and he promotes dharma. Organizational development, in one sense, the word says it all. Anything that concerns the organization, the structure, the finance, the culture, the policies, the different procedures, and so on and so forth. So this was created in 2008, and it became, I mean, many of the things, as we'll see, was created as a proposal or dev, what we call or dev, and that was accepted by the GBC and so forth. We have something in the chat. Sri Madhava Gauranga Prabhu say, Dear Kaunteya Prabhu and devotees, my sincere apology for being late to this extent. I had some senior guests at my house for lunch and ran longer than expected. Welcome back, Madhava Gauranga Prabhu. Okay, so ORDEV, the ILS, ISKCON Leadership Sangha, it was felt we need the time, we need a place, we need a forum where the GBC and other leaders, other thought leaders, experts can share their expertise, can share their materials, they can share their ideas, they can share the vision. So the ISKCON Leadership Sangha was started. At one point, I remember one we had some 86 different seminars. So one could not even go and take all of them because in 8 days you cannot take 86 seminars. So people could come and listen from different experts, from communication, domestic abuse, anything, basically 86 different topics. I'm not going to list all of them. We had 5 editions so far, 2012, 14, 16, 18, and 20. We just decided we are not going to have one face-to-face in 2022. We are going to have something online, but not face-to-face. Of course, due to the pandemic, travel restrictions, and so on and so forth. I don't know how many of you participated in one ILS. I I believe some of you did. Am I correct? Say yes if you did.
Yes.
Only one
Yes.
person.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
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 Okay. I'm glad. I hope you liked it. I hope you find something useful that you brought back home and you could use it. So that was a product of this strategic thinking and strategic work. It not just came by chance, obviously. Another thing was the SGGS, the Sangha of GBCs, Gurus, and Sannyasis. See, we discussed and we said, look, going into, now we only have 100 within GBC, Sannyasis, Guru, more or less, 100, depends, because some are new or coming on, some they leave the bodies and so on. But more or less we have 100 of this. But one day we'll have thousands, right? We'll have thousands of Gurus, thousands of Sannyasis. The GBC will only remain in 30 or 40. But so these are the spiritual leaders of the society. So we need to have a system to bring them together so they have a sense of camaraderie. They can be on the same page on many issues. Then they can feel a sense of association and a common spirit. This exercise was done. This was the Namahata building in Mayapur, was all decorated in a very special way for 3 days. Now, what happened is that on a wall, there was this quote by Srila Prabhupada on unity and diversity, a letter Srila Prabhupada wrote in 73. So I believe about 3 GBCs, three leaders read this quote and everybody meditated what it actually means unity and diversity. This is just one exercise. There were many exercises like that. So far, 4 editions. This group photo was at the first edition in 2013. 13, 15, 17, and 19. And somehow we missed 2021 for, we would say, obvious reasons. Nobody was going to travel to Mayapur in 2021 in February, and even the GBC meeting was online. So I'm sure you recognize many faces. Some you may not recognize us, you may not recognize. So GBCs, Gurus, Sannyasis. And we also invited the BBT trustees which are also very important in UNESCO. So they're very involved. Now, the GBC, this SDGs also was very instrumental in generating the Sabha. The Sabha, of course, you know, most of you are from India. Sabha means assembly, means council. The Indian parliament is called Lok Sabha. And what is the Sabha? It's also an acronym, Spiritual Advisors, Bhagavata Assembly. And it's a body that works as a checks and balances on the GBC. These are devotees very loyal to ISKCON, and it was felt we need a group of people that can take the resolutions of the GBC and independently look at them and see if they like, no? Give a different, give a fresh look. And they have the power to stop the application, the execution of a resolution. After a resolution is published, they have 1 month to confer among themselves and decide, are we voting this and we confirm it, or we say, no, we don't think it's a great idea, needs some modification, please think of this. Especially, again, to protect the movement, to protect, to improve this. I will tell you more about the Sabha after the break. So we have our usual 7 minutes break. We will start sharp, hopefully sharp, at 4:09. Hare Krishna. Let's all go into the break. Hare Krishna. So we can continue discussing the Sabha. Some of you might have already recognized the function. It was similar to the President Council in the 70s, which, as I explained at one point, became discontinued rather. So the same function the Srila Prabhupada established through the temple president was established again through the Sabha. And who are these Sabha? There are up to 35 members. They can function even if they're only 25, but up to 35 members. And 12 come from the gurus and sannyasis group, those who are not GBCs, obviously. Then 5 senior devotees. Senior devotees means they're initiated at least since 30 years. 5 representatives of Vaishnavis. There could be more because there could be also from senior devotees or from the area representatives and so on, but at least 5 representatives of the Vaishnavis, 3 representatives of the youth, and then 10 from broad areas in the world, broad geographical areas. Some, like in India, they are selected by the bureau. One person for India is selected by the bureau. In other places where there is no like RGB or Continental Council, then also the SGGS elects them. So the SGGS elects some 20 members, 5 by the Vaishnavi ministry, 3 by the youth ministry, and in some other areas like the Euro RGB elects a representative from Euro, like that. Any question about the Sabha? This is a group photo. This was the first time they met. Some of you recognize the Gada building in Mayapur, the first time they met face to face. We have front and center Madhava Gauranga Prabhu's mother, Krishna Rupa Devi. This group photo was the first year. Not everybody is still a member, but quite a few are. we have Nishingadeva, no, sorry, Nishingananda Prabhu, front on the left with the blue kurta. He has been serving as the chair of the Sabha, very active, very energetic. And then we have, I mean, you recognize many devotees, I'm sure. Some youths, some Vaishnavis, some gurus, and so on. So this is the general concept of the Sabha. If you have any questions, in this section, we'll talk about so many things, some highlights from this period. This is one of the highlights. This was established by the GBC in 2018, March 2018. So they're already going on for more than 3 years. The tenure is 4 years. And so therefore, they will going to be next year, they're going to be, next year, there will be another elections, and so on. Then there was a process of zonal configuration. This started in 2008. We asked the GBC, we noticed that some GBCs had zones in 3 different continents, some even in 4 different continents, or at least 4 large, very far places, and so on and so forth. So we asked the GBC in 2008, should we take a look at this? And the GBC agreed, yeah, let's take a look. So it started creating different zones, and already under 70 were formally identified and ratified by GBC resolution. And then it became obvious that these zones were supposed to be for zonal supervisors, not GBCs. We also told, we meaning ORDEF told the GBC, do you want to have 200 GBCs? We can design a system with 200 GBC, but they said, no, better to stick to 40 maximum. It's more manageable and so on. So the idea is that next phase of ISKCON would be some 35, 36 GBC areas. And then within the GBC area, 5, 10 zones for zonal supervisors. So the zonal supervisor position was created. Of course, you know about this. This is the course for zonal supervisors. And it's a cultural shift to standard service descriptions, because often before there was the regional secretary concept, and all that it said, this was there from the 70s or early 80s. Only thing that it says in ISKCON law about regional secretary, that it will be working on the GBC and it will have more power than the temple president. That's all. Instead, the zonal supervisor at least has a standard job description. So you can actually see if he or she is doing the job or not, obviously. Unified terminology, there is a shift to, because there's so many nomenclatures in the world. So we said, let's have one name, translated if need be, but basically the same name. And mandatory training. This is a beginning. As a society, we are still in the beginning, but ideally, every position of responsibility should have its relevant, pertinent training. This is what the civilized society does. Any position in which you are responsible for others, in which you can actually hurt others, the state, the government mandates a training. Like for instance, if you are a doctor, you're not good, you could kill people or maim people. If you're a lawyer, if you're not good enough, if you're not trained, the person may, rot in jail forever because of your lack of expertise. Even if you're an accountant, you make major mistake, the person can be fined or put to jail because of wrong tax returns and things like that. So an advanced society makes sure that people who have responsibility over others, they should be trained like that. Like to give an example, in the United States of America, it became obligatory to have training to become a doctor only in around 1870. Before 1870, anybody could do surgery, anybody could extract teeth and things like that. But then later on, no, if you're a doctor, you can do these things, otherwise you can't. And the GBC College was established by GBC resolution in 2014. This is a photo from the first day of the GBC College in Govardhaniko village in March 2015. It was the evening, and we had Radhanath Maharaj, Giriraj Maharaj, Bhakticharo Maharaj as teachers. Radhananda Maharaj in that particular occasion he came also as a participant, as a student. It was before he became GBC. This was the first evening, like a question and answer session. 6 editions of the zonal supervisor course in India. You are the 6th group going through. And in India has been also we could say the international one. We had people from a number of countries, participants from all over the world. This was the 2nd year in 2016. As you can see, we had devotees from all over the world, China, Latin America, Europe, and so on and so forth. Anyway, this was the 2nd batch. We did in Russia, 2017, 2018. Bhakticharo Maharaj traveled to Russia. Anuttama Prabhu traveled to Russia. We had 4 sannyasis within the students. Then we had in 2018, 2019, we did it in Brazil for the whole Latin America. So we had devotees from about 10 different countries. Argentina, Bolivia, so on. We started in Central Asia in May 2019 for covering these countries. This is a group photo with the local GBC, Chaitanya Chandra Charan Prabhu. These mountains you see in the back, these hills, these are the last piece basically of the Himalayas. One side goes to India and one side goes to the other side to Kazakhstan. This is basically the same place as Delhi, just more north, beyond the Himalayas. We started in North America. Actually, we completed North America. This is I didn't update this slide. We started in North America in October. It was in New Vrindavan, and it took a little longer because of the pandemic. We just finished a couple of months ago. Last year, we started the GBC College course. Every devotee is a project for group leaders in China. So this is the 2nd offering of the GBC College. It was designed specifically for China, and we completed. They just had to have some final kind of ceremony, but we completed. It was 1-year course online for group leaders in China. Now, part of this work of looking at the structure, looking at the future, was creating the GDO, the Global Duty Offices. Some of you have heard about this. And because GBC, obviously, it's a global portfolio. They need to think about the whole world. And there are devotees who can help in specific areas. For instance, there is a devotee originally from India, based in Australia. He also became the zonal supervisor for Pakistan. But he's a professor in environmental studies. He's a scientist. So he's GDO for that particular area. Now, the technical area of ecology, ecological understanding. So there are about 20 GDOs for different services. And the idea is that, say, for instance, there are zonal supervisors, other devotees who are taking care of its zone. Then there are other qualified devotees. Some of them will become GDOs, Global Duty Officers, and it is from the Global Duty Officers that the GBCs will be selected. This also happened. Last 4 GBCs became GBCs after serving at least 2 years as Global Duty Officer. Gauranga Prabhu, Devakinandan Prabhu, Singapore, and Radhakrishna Prabhu, like that. So it became, it's a norm that before become GBC, you need to serve 2 years as Global Duty Officer, because the idea is to stress as a GBC, you have to think of the whole world, right? Of course, maybe your time, most of your time, will think of your area, but you need to think of the whole world. So the Global Duty Officer experience can help. We've been promoting the system thinking. You have seen this iceberg many times, understanding that what happens doesn't just happen by chance. Of course, there are patterns, there are trends. These trends come from certain systems or the lack of them, and these systems come from certain mental models. So the most important aspects are the values, the priorities, the belief that shape the whole system. Shape the system, shape the trend, and then we see different events because we see different mentalities. We discussed about this, right? Then there was some progress on the ISKCON Constitution. Now we are working on draft 4. It's already, the first draft was just an introduction of the work. Then we got feedback on the second draft, feedback on the third draft. Now we are working on that feedback and crafting draft 4. It's about 100 pages. And this is the ISKCON Constitution. Srila Prabhupada wanted an ISKCON Constitution, and we are working on creating an ISKCON Constitution. Part of this work, strategic work of the GBC, is GBC established, defined what is the ISKCON general membership. Because we always say member. Of course, life members is one type, which, as you know, in India changed to patron members. But who is a member of ISKCON? There was never really a clear definition. So the GBC defined that, and to give very broad access, it was made simple. Basically, anybody can go to the ISKCON Connection site and sign up. There is a statement that says, I'm paraphrasing, but basically say, I accept Lord Krishna, I accept the teachings of Lord Krishna as presented by Srila Prabhupada, and I want to be part of the spiritual family of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. I understand that this membership doesn't give me any specific rights in any ISKCON organization, but I want to be part of this movement for the benefit of society. I don't know how many of you already signed up. You can go and sign up today itself. For now, you only receive a weekly newsletter, like a selection from ISKCON News, from Dandavats, like that, from the SPT newsletters and so on. But it's a beginning. It's a beginning. This can be very influential in connecting all ISKCON devotees, and could be a forum for training and so on. It's a beginning project. Some of you remember the first day we said that in 1975, the GBC had already decided to have a card. You remember, information card of all devotees? So this is the same concept, but of course, in the age of the internet. Part of this strategic work has been discussed in Mayapur Future with the Indian leaders, especially the different lines of authority over Mayapur, legal aspects, and so on. This you studied this independently. The 3 ecosystem concept was discovered, explored, disseminated through different. We teach this also in the in the GBC college, understanding ISKCON as the organizational, institutional part, the social part, the family, and the guru-shishya relation. And it's an ongoing work to create harmony within those three ecosystems. Discussing the challenges of the first 4 generations. This was a major sociological, historical discovery. I won't talk much about this because on Monday, we'll dedicate the whole lesson on this. And I take the opportunity to remind you, you have received about a 20-page document. It's quite technical, so please study it nicely. If you have not studied yet, you still have 4 days basically. So please take some time, study it, take notes. If something is not clear, come prepared with your questions. So we discussed this. Very important concept, very important concept. In fact, some GBCs, they took it very seriously. They went back to the zones. They started discussing this. Very important for the long-term health of the movement. And in fact, your document, the document you are asked to read, talks even about the 5th generation. So it's even more. You get 1 generation bonus. Now, this is a work in progress, working on more effective GBC deployment. So once the GBC realized we need so many zonal supervisors, at least under 70 at the moment. We don't want to have under 70 GBC. So how to have GBC deployment, which is more effective. And of course, we want to move from having GBCs, having zones in 3 different continents or huge zones or minuscule zones, not just like for namesake. We want to have some balance. So these are the areas of the world. The yellow, orange, and green, these are areas which have already been ratified by GBC resolution. So these are official areas. The difference between yellow and green is that the green ones already have a area GBC. These are called GBC areas to distinguish them from the zones of the zonal supervisors. So GBC areas, and the GBC is called area GBC. Okay, so 26 GBC areas ratified, 15 area GBCs appointed. So you have Guru Prasad Maharaj for Mexico, Central America, Caribbeans. You have Virabhao Prabhu for the southern part of South America, Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, Paraguay. Then you have Kavichandra Maharaj, West Africa, Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj in the southern part of Africa, Gopal Krishna Maharaj for the eastern part of Africa, Bhakti Bringa Govinda Maharaj for North Africa and the Middle East, basically all the Islamic countries. Not all the Islamic countries, but these are all Islamic countries. Giridhari Maharaj for China and the Philippines. Ramai Swami Maharaj for Australia, Oceania, New Zealand, Indonesia. Bhakti Marg Maharaj, Canada, and some of the northern states of America. Badrinath Maharaj, West Coast, Hawaii. Achyutatma Prabhu, the northern part of Russia, Moscow, St. Petersburg, and so on. Chaitanya Chandra Charan Prabhu, the central and Ural part of Russia. We have Madhu Sevita Prabhu, Western Europe, Italy, Spain, France, like that. And Dina Sharana Devi for the German-speaking country like Switzerland, Germany, Austria, Liechtenstein. Then Govardhan Prabhu was appointed for Southern Africa. And of course, because also Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj still has zones in Siberia, still has zones in Europe. Okay, you may have noticed a special color on the map, the red color. Red color is because the Indian subcontinent has not yet been subdivided. the GBC more than once has indicated that they would like to have up to 7 GBC areas for 7 GBCs. They get more than anybody else. I mean, Europe has 5, North America has 5, all Latin America 4, the whole Russian sphere, previous Soviet Union has 4, and so on. But India, because of the number of projects, the importance of India, and so on, so it was identified at 7. Now, this is a work in progress. We had discussions with the Indian GBCs. Just yesterday, we had a meeting with the subcommittee of the Bureau that deals with organizational development. So they were going to present a proposal, which will be discussed by the Indian leaders, and then will be presented to the GBC. So this is the situation for GBC deployment. In 2019, in October, the charter models direction accepted. Now, we don't want to get into so much details. What's a charter model? A charter model is an approach that can help define and redefine ISKCON. It means that both individually and collectively, means both leaders like temple presidents, the gurus, sannyasis, and so on, and collectively like projects, farms, temples, restaurants, and so on, they should be regulated by some formal agreements, so that it clarifies the relation with the GBC, clarifies the level of autonomy. The spirit is unity in diversity. The spirit is freedom within boundaries, autonomy within certain standards. So the GBC had already discussed a form of this in '92, almost 30 years ago, but in 2017, 18, and 19, they accepted the general direction. The GBC wants to agree that, or that talks about this. Now, we had already, last year, 2020, we had already a series of meetings with different national councils in the world, national and continental councils, but then the pandemic slowed that down. So we already had, in some cases, dates and place, almost tickets, but then the pandemic changed the rule of the game. So that was kept in other words, the progress on this was interrupted. So just to recap, these are just highlights. There were other things like establishing the number of GBCs and numbers of other resolutions, but I don't want to give you like too much details. If you want more details, first of all, we have some 25 minutes. We can ask more questions in a specific area, or you can read the resolutions from this all these years. So the phases we quickly analyze. 70-77, Srila Prabhupada is physically present, 7 years and a few months. 1978-87, the Zonaracharya period and its demise. What we call 87-2006, obviously is a long time. Normalization, normalization in the sense of, okay, we accept gurus can initiate anywhere, any disciple can take any guru. Routine means legislation, creating the administrative base, the legislative basis, disciplinary standards and so on, and defensive actions as we saw the 30 case or the Ritvik case, and many other things, of course, 18 years. And then from 2006 to, I could say 2021, the down of the strategic era, question mark, because we'll see what will will happen in the future. Now, a quote, letter to Balavanta Prabhu, now cooperate to place the spiritual consciousness movement at the front of all others. That is my request. So this will give an idea of Srila Prabhupada's vision. Remember, Balavanta has been a GBC, has been a chairman of the GBC. At the time, he wasn't a GBC, but he became later a GBC. Was the devotee who Srila Prabhupada encouraged and authorized to do political preaching. No, he ran for office in America, a party called In God We Trust. Wasn't too successful. Srila Prabhupada stopped, not the concept, they stopped to say, look, we cannot use this money for this. But the concept that the devotees could be active in any sphere, that was like established. As I said yesterday, we had an interview of 1 hour with Balavanta Prabhu, his experience as a GBC, his experience of chairman, his experience as a chairman, his experience in the years of the Zonal Acharya days and so on. So you can go and see that on YouTube. And this is really the vision of Srila Prabhupada. And in this vision, of course, the governing body commission of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness plays a major role. Plays a major role. Now, in isolation, some temples can become very successful, some projects can become very flourishing, but as the whole society, in terms of culture, legislation, legal protection, standards, philosophical protection, theology, theological guardianship, it needs a board of directors, a spiritual board of directors, in this case, the governing body commission, that oversees the whole ISKCON. What's next? I don't know. Maybe some of you will become GBCs, and you will have the experience of taking all problems on your head and being blamed for everything that happens. It will be a very purifying, very nurturing experience. So, okay. So I left some time. If there are questions from any of these days, we spent 5.5 hours discussing the GBC history. Any questions, comments from any part of this presentation? We have Premanjana Prabhu and then Srimad Gauranga.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
So Premanjana Prabhu, where are you now?
I'm in Vrindavan now.
Okay. So finally you could go get out of Tirupati.
What do you say, Prabhu?
Finally you managed to get out of Tirupati.
Yes, Prabhu.
I'm sorry, we were all taken by surprise.
Yeah.
Sorry, I apologize for any inconvenience. But Tirupati is not the worst place to remain. Please go ahead.
So I have a few questions. The first one is, can we get the list of the 170 zones that have been defined?
Yes. Now, I may not have the latest, like for instance, a couple of months ago, the GBC had the 7 zones in Brazil. Brazil was one zone, although it's huge. Geographically, Brazil is 2.5 times the size of India. Okay? Of course, there's not so many people, but still more than 200 million people and many temples. So just recently, Brazil from 1 became 7. A month before that, China from 10 became 12. So it's a work in progress. People are, I may not have a list of all the under 70. You could try in the GBC site under every year there is the GBC resolution, and there is one link to the zonal assignments, but may not be there on all the under 70 areas. That is only give the zonal supervisors. Look, why don't you write to me personally, send me a note. I will see what I can do. Okay.
Okay, Prabhu.
I
So,
will, I should probably update my list and send it to you.
okay. The next question is, what is the difference between the area GBC and just the normal GBC?
Okay, there is no difference. The area GBC, the job description, the service just description of responsibilities of an area GBC is the same as as being a GBC zonal secretaries. These are GBC zonal secretaries. The name of the territory has changed to not to create confusion. So zones we use it for zonal supervisors, areas we use for GBC, but the job of the GBC is the same. There is one detail that the GBC has decided that, say, they want to have maximum 40, and about 10%, about 4 should have only global responsibilities. In fact, 2 of the new GBCs, Gauranga Prabhu and Devakinanda Prabhu, don't have a zone, they don't have an area, at least so far, we don't know in the future.
Oh,
But they only have global responsibilities. So they oversee global area. So the idea is that of 40 GBC, at least 4 will not have a territory, will only take care of something global. That could be, say, communications, or could be the legal aspects, or many other aspects, education and so on. But there's no difference between GBC zonal secretary and area GBC. It's the same, just the name of the areas changed, not to make confusion. Okay?
yeah. And my last question is, I didn't see the GBC resolutions of this year. Was it not published?
No, they were not published. Also because, I mean, one reason could be that the GBC is continuing meeting, because obviously they didn't have the face-to-face meeting in Mayapur, and they did it online, and they continue meeting. They meet every week, on Wednesday. As I mentioned yesterday, there was the other meeting, and they passed resolutions also outside the AGM, and so they are not being yet published.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Prabhu.
Hi, Krishna Fu. Just as I was reading that document and in hearing your discussions on the phases of development of the organization, I'm assuming that they're not linear phases, because there seems to be a lot of overlap in different areas. Is my assumption correct, or is it actually a linear thing?
No, it's perfectly correct. First of all, being a global movement and being, I would say, hyper decentralized. Personally, I would say it's too decentralized. But anyway, being a very decentralized movement, also with different histories, different places at different levels of development. Some areas have been there for 50 years or more. In some areas, maybe ISKCON has been there only for a few years. In many countries, ISKCON is just not there yet. So definitely there will be a spread of different levels of development. Some today itself, some will be still pioneer, total pioneer. Some will be more developed in the administrative or rational phase, like that. Just like human beings all over the world, some they live in skyscrapers, some they still live in huts as aborigines. It's the same human species, but with so much development, so much difference of technology. So similarly in ISKCON, there are areas which are more developed and areas which are less developed. And within those little more developed area, some are developing one way, some are developing a different way. No. Generally, I would say, as an organizational development point of view, vis-a-vis the 7 purposes, we are still very undeveloped, especially because the first purpose of the society is to educate all people in the techniques of spiritual life, give spiritual knowledge, etc. But we don't even have, generally, we don't even have a good structure to teach our own children. So by and large, we're not doing very good, even with the first purpose, and we could say foremost purpose. It's an educational movement, spiritually educational movement, and we don't really have a system even to educate our own children. So we are still very undeveloped.
Yeah. Okay.
We may think, see, we are accustomed to a certain ISKCON, okay? Some of us are 20 years, some of us 30 years, some of us 40 years. So, okay, this is ISKCON. But compared to where we should be, we are still very undeveloped. Do you agree?
It's an evolution of phases within phases within phases, basically.
Yeah, I mean, the 3 phases are very broad.
Yeah.
Other scholars in organizational development recognize 5 or 6 phases. I personally kept it simple. It's easy to grasp, pioneer, rational, integration, but you could subdivide in many more phases.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Rasa Shai Prabhu.
Prabhu, I missed in Sabha, you said 20 members are there, 5 representative Vaishnavis, 3 from youth, and how many Grihasthas and how many sannyasis?
Okay, there are 35 members.
Okay.
12 are gurus and sannyasis who are not GBCs.
12 gurus and sannyasis. 12 non-gurus, okay.
No. 12 could be it could be there are either gurus or sannyasis. Some
Okay,
sannyasis may not be gurus, some gurus may not be sannyasis. Gurus and sannyasis.
Okay, 12 gurus and sannyasis, okay.
5 senior devotees. 5 selected by the Vaishnavi ministry. So we are 22.
Yeah.
3 selected by the youth ministry. So we are 25. And 10 from different areas of the world, like North America, Latin America, Europe, Africa, like that. 10.
Yeah. Prabhu, and one more question. Like Sabha is just working on the resolution, it is correct resolution or not, or they are appointing the initiating gurus also. I heard that they are doing the initiating guru appointment also.
No, they don't appoint the initiating gurus. What they do is check the resolutions. When they check the resolution, they can just vote. They're okay with it. Okay, finished. It's operational. They can propose some change, and it goes back to the GBC. The GBC can confirm, no, we like it as it is, or they can change something according to the Sabhas. So the GBC still has the last word, but the Sabha, of course, can tell, look, we would like this to change and so on. This is one function. Second function, the Sabha can propose new legislations. See, generally, for legislation, you need to have 2 GBC sponsoring the proposal. Okay, anybody can present proposals. Any of you can present a proposal to the GBC. You think this is a good way to improve ISKCON, you can present the proposal, but you need 2 GBCs that sponsor your proposal. Certainly, I mean, if you can't convince 2 GBCs, probably won't be convincing 35 GBCs, right? So, but anybody can submit a proposal. Now, the SABA can submit the proposal without GBC sponsors. And the SABA can also, the third practical function, can also suggest a topic that they want the GBC to discuss. It may not be a specific proposal, you know, but it may not be specifically a piece of legislation, but they may say, look, we have this topic, please give attention to this topic. Okay?
So one more last question. What is the difference between GBC and GBC?
There is no difference in Tattva. GBC is a GBC. Some people, I notice that some devotees assume that GBC is something, co-GBC is something less. No, co-GBC means it's a GBC together with one or more GBCs. That's all. It means they are responsible of a particular place together with other GBCs. That's all.
They are equal like GBC only. Just they are with the GBC.
Yes. Co simply means together. It's not like GBC advice GBC. No, they're all GBCs, but a co means they're working together in a particular place. Okay?
Thank you.
Of course, between them, I mean, in some place you have, say, 2 GBCs, 2 co-GBCs, and one maybe is much more active. Maybe it goes there much more often, one comes less. That's between them, how they want to work, how much time they want to spend on the place. But that's internal arrangement. Now, we do have from the GBC College a message. Please give your feedback for sessions taken by His Grace Kaunteya Prabhu on GBC history by filling the forms at https blah blah blah. So they're asking you to do it. Probably you can do it after. This will be on these 3 sessions, and I plan to read it and study it, your feedback, because I want to know. This is the first time, frankly, we teach. No, it's not the first time. We did it for North America. So, but this is only the second time I teach this course at the GBC College. So I would like to know from you. Please be frank, be transparent. What you like, what you don't like, what you like, what you want less, what you like more, like that. Please let me know. Okay, I do plan to study your feedback. 5 minutes more. Anybody else wants to bring any other point, reflections, questions, protests, applications to become GBCs? It's a fact. See, I'm a member. One thing I didn't mention, part of this process has also been the strategic process, also to change the GBC nominations committee. So it's already there, but it became larger, it became bigger, and it became more proactive. It was not before, was just like some name comes from somewhere and then they process. Now we are working, in fact, proactively. We're trying to look for future leaders, and there is a system, much more systematic process that goes between 6 months and 2 years. Already 3 devotees went through this process: Govardhan Prabhu, Devakinanda Prabhu, Singapore, and Gauranga Prabhu. And the GBC nominations committee submitted to the GBC a full book. It was like an 100-page analysis of the person, their history, the strengths, the room for improvement, and so on. Every GBC got a full book on the person. So now it's much more systematic. This was mostly, I would say, the leader in this was Radhakrishna Prabhu. He did a lot of work. He put up a website. There are people screen these people and so on and so forth. So it's very systematic, quite professional. And so this is one development. And frankly speaking, we are looking for GBCs. The average age of the GBCs is very high. Some are in the 70s, some are more than 75. Some of them are not so well in health. There are 3 GBCs right now, 3 GBCs in leave of absence due to health. Ramai Swami Maharaj had the stroke. Shesha Prabhu had the stroke. Bhakti Bhushan Maharaj had a number of health problems. We don't know if all of them would come back to become GBCs. Others, either they're old or they have other health issues. And in any case, time obviously marches on for everybody. So we are looking for fresh batch cadre of GBCs for the future. This is internal and it's nothing official, but the mood is we would like them to be somewhat younger, you know. We didn't put a particular age, but you know, in their 40s, you know, still young, still energetic, but with some experience, obviously, with some experience and some maturity in ISKCON and as an individual, but who can also have energy to travel, to deal with so many issues. No, we don't want to new GBCs. We are already 80, 85. You know, those who we can consult as sages, wise men, and wise women, but we need new batch of GBC. So if you feel inspired, if you feel the vocation, if you feel the call, you can contact me personally. We can talk. If you do it for the right motivation, of course, which is, what's the right motivation for becoming GBC? Masochism. That's the right motivation. I'm joking. It's a great service. It pleases immensely Srila Prabhupada. It's a great opportunity to be absorbed, to serve. We know, I mean, you know, being a leader in ISKCON means you serve more devotees, more Vaishnavas, more deities. So it's a great opportunity to service, for absorption, for making a difference in the mission, for helping other devotees and helping the non-devotees. So it's an open invitation. If you have some interest, some curiosity in the idea, let me know. Write to me in private. So our time is up. Thank you very much. See you on Monday. And read that document, study that document. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.